Hello everyone, I'm Fatma.
I'm Sarosha.
Today we're going to talk about sacred spaces and times of Eastern religions.
Fatma is going to go over Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism, and then I'll continue from there.
We start with Hinduism. In Hinduism, most people consider the temple and the sacred places to be an extension of heaven on earth. So mountains, groves, rivers, towns, cities, and even forests are considered sacred in Hindu tradition. Even though the whole subcontinent of India is holy, there are thousands of specific locations throughout the map that pilgrims and believers can visit. Pilgrims visit these places every year. It is believed that they gain liberation just by even visiting a place or climbing a mountain. And Hindu temples aren't just built randomly to a location, they are facing specific special locations. Temples and shrines present the embodied cosmologies of Hinduism. Some have precise coordinations. These naturalistic and geological features are really, really important in Hindu tradition. Temples are centers of personal piety and spiritual power. Millions of Hindus go to these sacred towns, worship in temples, bathe in holy rivers, and climb to sacred mountains in order to pray for happiness in this life and in the next one. In Indian texts, all of India is holy. It's considered to be the place where karma is fulfilled. The map of India is filled with sacred places, like I said before. Um, there are thousands of towns, villages, and sites across the country. These routes are arranged thematically. Now, I'm going to give you some numbers, and I was really surprised when I found out these numbers. There are 108 places that the power of the goddess is believed to be present, right now even. 68 places where emblems of Shiva emerge from. 12 places where Shiva appears as flames of energy. And 8 places where Vishnu manifested himself. So people visit these locations because they're associated with their divine gods, goddesses, powers, spirits, and stuff. Most holy places have a text with details of the site's sacredness. The temple is considered to be like a port where humans may cross over the life and death. Many temples and holy places are located near the sea, a lake, a river, or just a small spring. When such a body of water is not present, there are always an artificial body of water, like a fountain or like an artificial waterfalls. Rivers like Ganga, Yamuna, and Kaveri are so holy that bathing in them means destroying the sins. People think that they purify their souls and spirits by just bathing in these rivers. They're so important that people keep small jars of water of these rivers in their homes, and they use them in domestic worships and rituals. I think this is really cool because the religion, the belief is inside the home, not just in a specific time or in a specific place. Rather, it's inside the home. Many other holy sites are located near mountains and caves where Hindu deities are believed to be present. The innermost shrine of a Hindu temple is a windowless space, just like a cave. I think they try to commemorate the sense of being in nature, even in artificial shrines. A number of temples were built with the alignment of certain stars and planets. The times of observation of these stars and planets are also important in Hindu tradition. A typical temple has shrines for the deity, his or her spouse, and their children. For example, in a temple in Tiruvanmiyur, there's shrines for main god Shiva, his wife, and their children Ganesha and Murugan. India's richest temple is one of the world's wealthiest religious sites. It's the temple of Tirumala Tirupati. Um, People donate millions of dollars to this temple annually, and the temple funds a large range of projects from enterprises, charities, hospitals, universities, to even publications. In recent years, they contribute to reforestation projects mainly, and most Hindus attend their local temple or a holy place regularly because these places mean a lot for their families and has been meaning a lot for generations. That's why they go their local places regularly. And now, oh, sorry. We're going to continue with sacred times in Hinduism. The Hindu calendar has a lot of auspicious and propitious times, meaning that there are certain times that are good or bad to do some things. This could be to start new journeys, to start new enterprises, enter homes, or even get married, or just celebrate a small thing. Astrology is an integral part of Hindu life. Even a child's horoscope is cast right after he or she is born. There are also auspicious times specific to the individual, aside from the religious doctrines. There are individualistic times. And there are a lot of festivals in Hinduism, like most of you know. They involve times of feasting and fasting. The most important festivals include the birthdays of main gods Rama, Krishna, and Ganesha. Festival of Navaratri is the destruction of a demon by the goddess Durga. Hindu festivals are mainly filled with color and joy. They are always associated with feasting and pleasure, but however, there are also fasting involved in some of the festivals as well. Some of the important regional festivals are Holi, Onam, and Pongal. Holi is a spring festival that is celebrated in northern India to celebrate the new colors of the springtime flowers. I think most of you have seen the pictures or videos of people throwing really beautiful colors at each other. That's the festival of Holi. And Onam is a festival that is celebrated in southern state of Kerala in honor of God Vishnu. And the Pongal is a harvest festival in Tamil Nadu. The festival Navaratri is celebrated throughout India. It is dedicated to the worship of the goddess Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Durga. There are specific days that are dedicated to certain gods. The ninth day of Navaratri is dedicated to Saraswati, who is the goddess of learning and music. Now, in homes, people bring out all the musical instruments and books and present them in front of the image of this goddess as respect and remembrance. In modern times, some people bless their computers and their technological devices because we learn so much from them. So they see them as something to celebrate. And the last day of this Navaratri festival is dedicated to the god Lakshmi, the goddess of good fortune. Sorry. To mark the day, people learn new prayers, new music, and items of knowledge, and they also honor their great teachers to celebrate this day. Now, there is another festival that is widely celebrated throughout the whole India. It's the Deepavali festival. It is celebrated by decorating the home with lights, setting off fireworks, and wearing new clothes. Many Indians rise before dawn on Deepavali for a bath because they believe that all bodies of water contain the water of Ganga River at that specific day. Now, besides the festivals, temple worship is very important in Hinduism as well, but it's not communal, but individual in Hinduism. Footwear is always left outside the temple. It represents leaving all earthly things behind and entering a new divine site. The most meaningful part of the temple is the one where the deity is. Being in his or her presence is very important for the believers. As in the temple, deities are worshipped at home as well. Most people have like a special corner in their homes for daily rituals, worships. I think, like I said before, it's really, really good because these rituals are not specifically worship, not specifically done in like a shrine, like a temple. You can do it in your home, so it's with you every single day. Also, other than the temples, individuals' life stages are sacred in Hinduism as well. For example, a birth or a marriage can be considered sacred. Now, let's continue from Buddhism. In Buddhism, there are many sacred spaces, but these places become sacred by their association with the Buddha or with other sacred persons. As the seat where the Buddha achieved his awakening, the cosmos itself can be considered sacred. The same can be true of particular countries like Tibet or particular sites such as mountains that are associated with Buddhist deities. Even the seat of practitioners' meditation may be viewed as sacred in this sense. In his final disciplines, Buddha requested his body to remain in stupas for worship and meditation. The basic form of a Buddhist shrine replicates early stupas with a large central mount and surrounded by railing or parasols. The basic stupa was elaborated in many ways in different lands. For example, in Southeast Asia, shrines commonly retain the low, rounded shape of a traditional stupa, but in Tibet, the structure has been elongated vertically. In China, Korea, and Japan have similar structure to those in India. The earliest Buddhist temples were created in caves in western India. Typically, the cave has an entrance leading to a large space where people can sit or stand and worship in front of the small picture of the Buddha. In the 20th century, Buddhist temples have become common sites in Europe and North America. Um, Actually, Los Angeles is called the most complex Buddhist city and community in the world. In the world, yeah. An interesting fact is that in many places there are Buddha's footprints. For example, in Adams Peak, Sri Lanka, here's a picture. In Adams Peak in Sri Lanka, there is a footprint that is believed to be the Buddha's that he left when he was flying. It's located at the top of the mountain with a high elevation, and it is as it is seen in the picture. Now, for sacred times for Buddhism, Buddhists mark the movements of the seasons and the stages of human life in many different ways. Some festivals and rituals are tied to events in the life of the Buddha or the preaching of Dharma, but some of the most important events like New Year are tied only loosely to Buddhist traditions, so not every single sacred time or holy times are tied to the traditions or to the Buddha strictly. For many Buddhists, the most significant festivals in a year reflect stories about the life of the Buddha. The most important holiday is the Buddha's Day. The festival commemorates the birth, enlightenment, and death of the Buddha. People visit monasteries, venerate shrines, and listen to traditional sermons about the Buddha's life. Celebrations may also center on personal relics of the Buddha. There are also many festivals in different countries to honor important Buddhist teachings or scriptures. New Year celebration is the most important one, and it is celebrated differently in every single different country. Although there are many celebrations, Buddhist views on sacred time are not limited to seasons or events of a single life or a person's life, because for many Buddhists, distinctions in time are not important, since the awakening of the individual can occur anytime, at any moment. Now, let's continue from Taoism. In Taoism, the sacred space, the content of sacred space is a little bit different. In the Chinese worldview, the cosmos is a sacred place. It evolves in a ceaseless pattern, and all individual manifestations within it are structured according to this pattern. So, the Taoists consider the whole universe as sacred. Of particular significance to Taoism are geographical features such as caves, rivers, and mountains, just like in previous two religions. Temples and shrines are often erected on or near these sacred places. Taoists consider it beneficial to make pilgrimages to such sites. All things from spirits to rocks are made of the same material, Qi. The material is called Qi. So everything is somehow connected to each other in the universe. There are places considered as cave heavens. They are also considered sources of energy, places of the gods even, and were even seen as sacred microcosms. These ideas were related to the ancient art of Feng Shui, meaning accessing to the cosmic power. Feng Shui is widely used in modern homes to elevate the home's energy. Taoist sacred space includes temples and monasteries. Most temples in China are neighborhood temples run by lay people and are not specifically Taoists. They house images of Taoist deities as well as other religions. Other temples are often situated near natural features such as holy mountains that have spiritual significance. As one can see, natural sources and geographical features are extremely important for Taoism. Deities and sources of energy are believed to be present in these important locations. And from here, Sarosha will continue with sacred times for Taoism.
Hi guys, I'm going to continue off from where Fatma left, and that's from the Taoism sacred time. So the first thing we have is the Laba festival, which is celebrated on the 8th day of the 12th month of the Chinese calendar. The Laba festival corresponds to the day when Buddha became enlightened according to tradition. The Chinese New Year is where it marks the first day in the year in the Chinese calendar, which is marked by the full moon between January 21st and February 20th. The Lantern Festival is the celebration of the first full moon of the year. This is also the birth of Tuangan, a Taoist god of good fortune. It is celebrated on the 15th day of the first month in the Chinese calendar. The next sacred time is the Tomb Sweeping Day, which is originated from the Tang Dynasty from Emperor Xuanzang. Decreed celebration of ancestors would be limited to a single day of the year and is celebrated on the 15th day after the spring equinox. The Dragon Boat Festival, known as Duanwu, is held on the 5th day of the 5th month of the Chinese calendar. Several meanings are ascribed to it, some of those being a celebration of masculine energy because the dragons are regarded as masculine symbols. Another is a time of respect for elders or a commemoration of death of the poet Zuyan. The next sacred time is the Hungry Ghost Festival, which is a festival of veneration for dead. It's held on the 15th night of the 7th month in the Chinese calendar. The Mid-Autumn Festival is held on the 15th day of 8th month of lunar calendar. It's a traditional ethnic celebration of Chinese and Vietnamese people. And then the last day is the Double Ninth Day, which is a day for ancestors held on the 9th day of the 9th month in the lunar calendar. So then we're going to go on and speak about Confucianism, their sacred places in this religion. So first of all, we have the Confucian temples, which are called Gongmiao in Chinese. The temple in Khufu consists of the cemetery of Confucius, the temple of Confucius, Confucius's family mansion, and the temple began to come up after the Tang Dynasty in 907 CE. The Khufu is the birthplace of Confucius, considered one of the holiest cities in the world. Also, the sacredness of all space. because in Confucianism they believe that all space is sacred, and Confucianists emphasize the sacredness of this life and this earth rather than some afterlife. So then the next sacred space is the China's Mount Tai, and that is the Shandong province. And lastly, other holy places would be places of learning and the home, because that is where Confucianists believe relationships are formed. And we'll go on to sacred times. So in Confucianism, Xingming is also a very important time because it's one of the most important days in the Confucian religion, because it happens 106 days after the winter solstice. And on this day, people go to the graves of their ancestors with offerings such as paper money and paper clothing. And food, which is usually offered at the ceremony, is offered after the ceremony. And it's supposed to connect the spirits of the living with their former ancestors. Zhongmyo is a ceremony held in honor of the kings and queens of the Yi dynasty that lasted from 1392 to 1910, and this is it takes place on the first Sunday of May, from the past leaders being celebrated with music, food, and dance. Another very important sacred time is Confucius's birthday. He was born on the 28th of September. And it is when, in this ceremony is when it begins. It takes place over the span of a few days and it ends on the 10th day of October. It begins with a short march to a local temple where an animal is there sacrificed to Confucius. They sing the song of peace and get a special wisdom cake, which is made of rice. And it is celebrated the most of all ceremonies in Confucianism, and it's due to Confucius being the face of the religion. During the event, there are even kung fu competitions and music and dance and all those kind of things. And then the last very sacred time is the Qingming festival. It's also known as Tomb Sweeping Day, and it's either held on the 4th or 5th day of April. On this day, respect is paid to the ancestors by sweeping the graves and laying flowers on their graves. And sometimes the deceased person's favorite food will be left on the grave in small amounts, and money is also burned. People also bring kites to fly at the festivals. Okay. And let's go on to the next religion, Shintoism. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the sacred spaces in Shintoism. And mainly it consists of shrines. So there are about five main shrines that I'll go over. The first is the Ise shrine in Ise, and that is dedicated to the goddess of the sun, Amaterasu, standing since before Christ. The site was basically built, and it's destroyed and rebuilt every 20 years. And that's the basic concept of birth and rebirth in the Shinto religion, and that's what it portrays. Only members of royal family can enter the shrine. And Japanese people, they aspire to make a pilgrimage to the grand shrine at Ise at least once in their lifetime. So that is one of the most important shrines. The next one is the Izumo shrine in Izumo. Izumo Taisha is Japan's oldest and most venerated Shinto shrine. It's dedicated to the god of agriculture and healing, Okinunushi. The shrine can be reached through the two tories, which are basically Shinto gates. And its surrounding site is considered highly sacred, and majority of Japanese people go to this shrine to get married. That's the main aspect that ties into this shrine. The next one is Kamigamo Shrine in Kyoto, and it was built by an old noble clan, the Gamo family, and it was dedicated to the god of thunder. It's famous for the Haydn Hall and is was rebuilt in 1682, and the two mysterious sand cones at the entrance are would draw it a little more and make it more interesting because it's like two cones that are right in front of the shrine itself that you would pass by. And the fourth shrine that is very important is the Kasuga Grand Shrine in Nara, and it's founded in the 8th century and was rebuilt every 20 years, just like the Ise Shrine, but it stopped in 1863. It stopped being rebuilt and destroyed like that. And it's surrounded by forests and paths leading up to the decorated path in lanterns, which is lit every lantern festival. The inner grounds of the shrine are accessible only in exchange of a small fee. So if you don't give the fee, then you basically can't enter the grounds of that shrine. The last shrine that we'll go over is the Yudono-san Shrine in Tohoku, and it's a sacred and remote shrine, but you need to go barefoot, right? So you go barefoot and you enter the shrine in silence. And photography isn't allowed at this shrine. And visited last, it's the shrine that's visited last because according to belief, it symbolizes rebirth. The other two also connected to life. The Haguro-san is being birth and Ga-san death. So within this one shrine, there are two other that are connected to it. Okay, and then we'll go over the we'll go over the Shinto sacred times now. There's a couple of them, but there's more detail to those. So, Matsuri is basically in Japanese it means festival. There's no particular date for this, and it's mostly taking place at shrines, and it can last for several days, and it can include parades that display an image of the local kami, often symbolized for crops like rice, symbolized for happiness, good faith, and good health. The Hina Matsuri festival is another festival which is known as the Festival of Dolls on March 3rd, and it's a day to celebrate the daughters in the family. So the daughters, for their parents, will take dolls dressed in traditional Japanese court costumes on a tier. Like it'll be on different tiers, and they'll put it on one tier, and it's basically supposed to symbolize warding off evil spirits. So that's what that festival is for. There's a Shiji Go-san festival, and it's celebrated on the November 15th, and it literally means, like, the literal definition is 753, and it's a day of prayer for healthy growth of young children. So after visiting the Shinto shrines, like the ones I mentioned before, the parents buy the children longevity candy, which is called Shitos Ame. The Obon festival is a 3-day festival of lanterns on the 15th day of the 7th month in the lunar cycle. It honors the dead. Homes, altars, shrines, and tombs are cleaned and decorated for this holiday, and gardens are decorated with lights to light the way of the spirits to their families for the festival. Families reunions are celebrated while honoring their ancestors, and spirits of ancestors revisit their household altars. And the festival is finished with Taro Nagoshi, where lanterns are floated down rivers to symbolize ancestors returning to world of dead. And it'll basically look like a bunch of lanterns all across like the river that are flowing in one direction, and that is them symbolizing the return. The next one is Shogatsu. Shogatsu is in the Shinto New Year, basically. It starts on January 1st and ends on January 3rd, and is one of the most popular occasions for shrine visits. There are 8 bells that are rung in the Buddhist temples for this specific sacred time, and yeah, that's the New Year. So they just ring the 8 bells, and it commemorates the New Year. There's the last one is Shagen Shiki, and it literally means Adult Day, and it's celebrated for 20-year-olds and above, and it's for Japanese who have reached the legal adulthood in the previous year, and then they attend these shrines, like the ones I mentioned before, the some of them being the five main ones that I mentioned, and it's to give thanks. And that is about all. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys learned something new today. So here you go, and here's some of the sources that we used. We used the book, the textbook for this class, but we also used outside sources just to broaden our research. All right, thank you.